How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff. This is the Monday through Friday UAP news channel. This is UAP Tuesdays. This is where we take a bunch of the stories happening throughout the week. We talk about it in podcast form. It began on my Kristian Harloff pop culture channel, and it has now moved over to this channel. So if you have been a fan of this show or are finding it for the first time, subscribe to the channel. Going for 30,000, trying to hit 50,000, trying to get enough people out there to listen to what we're saying here, because we don't feel that the mainstream media is covering it enough. So we figure the more people who are listening, the more people asking questions, and not just us, anybody who's covering this topic, go and follow them, go and be a part of it. Some people, and even in this community, will say, oh, no, it's just me, just follow me. You can't do that. You got to say follow everybody, because this isn't a competition. This is everybody talking about this to get more people talking about it. So the mainstream, so people are saying, what the hell is going on out there? And what better topics to cover than the Nasca mummies? Now, on this show, every time we brought it up, we were talking about cake mummies and cake aliens and ET and all that. And we're like, I don't know, maybe. We always say, don't doubt whether it is the Miami Mall case or whatever it might be. We always say, you can say, I don't know, I'm a little skeptic about that. But to just flat out say, nope, I don't know anymore. Because they have been doing the research on this, excuse me, for a little bit. And there have been scientists, I believe, in Mexico that have been looking at this. And now Dr. Gary Nolan has weighed in and said, this data of the studies that they're doing on these things, it's pretty interesting. And he was on Matt Ford's Good Trouble show. Well, Matt Ford was communicating with him via text. And the exchange itself was interesting. So we'll get into that, and we'll discuss all those. We have some clips that came out from Stephen Greer, and Stephen Greer was talking about when it came to certain threats and things that had happened, particularly to people in his crew, about some of the information that he has been pretty vocal about. He also speaks about disinformation, and that's been a constant thing. It's disinformation. How much is it? He says that Tucker Carlson was a victim of disinformation. Got Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett's been talking a lot. He talked a little bit more about the Garcia amendment that never went through. He goes, it was never going to go through. And we'll hear his comments on that. There's some Roswell information. Speaking of Burchett, by the way, he commented a little bit more on the Lou Elizondo stuff. And there's some pictures that people said, this is legit. This could be it. And we say, I don't know. Could be some toys. But we'll talk about that. That and more on Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff. This is UAP Tuesday with myself and Mark Reilly. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, here we are. Thank you guys once again. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You search Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff, you'll find it. So you'll get everything, the little news pieces that we do, all of that and more. But today, it's myself and Mark Yodius Reilly. Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. As we said up top, as I said up top, you and I have been talking about so rewind a little bit. The hearings come out when David Grusch, Favor, and Graves in front of Congress, they're talking, and then not too long after that, might have been a month, might have been a couple weeks, I don't remember, were the Mexican hearings. And we covered that on the show, and we talked about that. And at first, we said, did you see what I think? They just presented bodies? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then there was disputes right away. No, not bodies. And then after a little bit, people started having some fun, and there was like, all right, well, look, this is a cake. Look at this. And we started calling them the cake aliens, right? It looked like ET, and no one took it seriously. But after a bit, people started doing a little bit more research on it, and not only are they saying these things are not mummies, that they're saying that these are actual like bodies with intestines, they're corpses, yeah. And now to be right away, there's not saying, and they haven't confirmed that it's extraterrestrial, NHI. They just say it's something else. So what do you make of it? Let me, before I even get that, let's play this clip from Matt Ford's show with the correspondence back and forth with him and Gary Nolan, and then we'll talk about that on the other side.
On my signal, Dr. Gary Nolan just pinged, and he says, Matt, this presentation is amazing. Again, this is Dr. Gary Nolan of Stanford University, the executive director of the Soul Foundation. So Dr. Nolan says, Matt, this presentation is amazing. Clearly, he's very impressed. He was noting here that there seem to be two different types. He notes here the small ones seem very different than the other one that is crouched over. Are these two species?
In fact, they've described three, as far as I know, three different separate species of these mummies that were all discovered in this same repository of these body or corpses, really is what they are. They're not really mummies, they're corpses.
Right.
Because they have all of their internal organs that are highly desiccated and fairly difficult to figure out what you're looking at. But as far as their interior organ structures, but they have discovered three different species that I'm aware of. All of them are quite different than one another. So,
Dr. Nolan was noting that the brain cases are very different between the two. So is it when he says that the brain cases are different, is the internal volume of the brain casing different in size, or is it more of just the shape of it? And would that indicate a difference in age of the different ones?
So I don't know if you're referencing these two that are juxtaposed here in the slide on the left, or if he's talking about comparing like Josefina here in the foreground on the left to Maria, who's a much different, humanoid specimen. The sizes of these are way different. These little smaller ones are about 60 centimeters long. And the Maria, I think, was like 1.68 meters long. So she's about the size of an average human female. Okay. These are very small. These are, let's say, 2 feet long, So, they're way, way different.
Dr. Nolan was asking, he noted earlier, just kind of going back to his message here, he was saying that he says they seem to be two different types. The small ones seem very different than the one that is crouched over. So I think perhaps he's talking about the one that was that was going through the CT scan.
Oh.
And also a note from Dr. Nolan as well. Is it possible these beings came from a different caste system per se?
It's absolutely possible. Sure. I have no idea what their hierarchy of this is going to be something that anthropologists and sociologists, this one reason that the journal that picked this article up is because that's the kind of things that this particular journal that's produced in Brazil, these are the kind of questions that they address in their journal, is the sort of social and environmental consequences of discoveries like this and what they could mean. And so I think that's the reason that this particular journal picked up this article and peer-reviewed it and published it.
All right, Mark. So you hear those comments. You hear the back and forth on what Gary Nolan says. What say you?
Well, I say, you never never jump to conclusions, I suppose. What may seem fake or a hoax at first, I'm eating cake on this one. I'm not shocked, but I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. that this could be actually something, because when they originally brought out, it was a moment of like, what? Wow. And it kind of all the things you really are looking to see confirmed is kind of happening in your mind in a millisecond. And then, reality sets in, and then more people come out and say, wait a minute, this is not true. Even Graves was there, right? And he's like, oh, man. And he's like rolling his eyes. He doesn't want to be a part of this kind of circus. But science is going to win out. every time.
Well, that's the question, right? The question is, I mean, you have someone like Gary Nolan who's now saying, again, he has not definitively said, yep, that's what it is. We know. He just says that the studies that they've been doing, this is interesting data overall. Yes. This is interesting data. This is interesting data. So the question, I guess, is, and this is something I brought up on the news piece that I did on this yesterday with Pavel, is it coincidence, or is it just kind of, I don't know, like just a happy accident, or just serendipity, if you will, where all of these things are coming in motion, whether it's a hearing, whether it's more information, whether it's disclosure in general, and where we've talked about like the Spielberg aspect of it all, where like Spielberg could put out a movie today on the UFO topic, and depending on all of this information that we could be getting in the next 2 years would be radically different from a movie that came out in 2026. So the same question then goes to this. Can you imagine that if with more research, this is only a year removed from all the research that they're doing. What's 3 years of research going to do on these things? What's 4 years of research going to do on these things?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe his movie is about the mummies or the corpses. It is ET too, but it's a tragedy instead of a heartwarming story.
Well, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they lived a nice long life. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? Who knows how long they are?
We don't know.
Who knows?
And you know, and I don't know about serendipity or coincidences. It's more coincidence. I'd be hesitant to say, hey, this is coming right when possibly the hearings are coming. Wink, wink. That would seem more forced. That would.
So you're saying you're saying more coordinated.
More coordinated would make me kind of bristle a bit.
Okay.
You know, if the data is coming through and it's saying, listen, we don't know, we're not calling them extraterrestrial, we're not calling them alien, but we don't know what these things are because of X, Y, and Z, and we have to do further study, and that's something. That's something I can bite onto. You know, they have research, they have people in the medical field that are looking at these things. So coincidence is more along the lines, rather than if it's coordinated, you know, then I feel like it's a forced thing where it's like, no, we're going to say that the data is backing this up so we can get this thing to go. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, I don't want this thing to be forced, because the minute you try to force this down people's throats, or you try to force disclosure, you know, people are going to bristle. We have other stories to look into ahead on this show, but it makes me, you know, look to like, when you try to force information out there, who's out there to try to spin it, disinformation, threats of physical harm, all the different things that we have been talking about on this show. So a coincidence is great. Give me more. Keep doing your research, guys. Keep looking into this thing, because right now I'm interested, and I'm like, wait, okay. So they might be, we don't know, but they might be something. It might be something. Look, we haven't seen anything on Earth like this.
Let's go to the flip side of this, and let's say that it's not NHI. Let's say it's not alien, but it's indeed another kind of species that lived here on the Earth.
Sure.
And if there was a type of species or a type of whatever it might be, and they did a study on it, and they determined that in fact these are real bodies. These are, think, from 1,000 years ago, whatever it might be, 2,000, 3,000, who knows how long ago these bodies were here, and whatever they might be, to see like, okay, well, this is the way this particular thing works, and what we determined that it was from Earth, but it's this, and they discovered new species or whatever it might be. It's still, and this is broken record time, Reilly. How in the world is this not a topic that everyone is covering, not in our space, because everybody is covering it in our space. Yeah. I'm talking about when you turn on CNN, you turn on Fox News, and you turn on all these outlets, how do they not say, wait a minute, there's scientists that are going, this could be something. And you have a panel of people saying, I don't know. But it's still, how is that not a story?
I don't know. Right now, we're right up against the first debate, so everybody, that's what they're
someone asked that about. Question. Please, someone asked that question at the debate. Oh my God!
Please, I know that what we covered last week. You know, trying to get disclosure, get a question out there, something, whatever it may be. But I think it's because this, you know, it seems that the mainstream media, the news outlets, they are so quick to forget, and they also just only remember what they want to remember. They probably covered this. They probably covered when somebody came out and said, nah, that's not real. And they moved on. And now they're talking. I mean, I've seen a shark unfortunately killed a lifeguard surfer in Hawaii. I've seen that story 5 times since yesterday.
Right.
It happened on Sunday. You know what I mean? That's what they're covering because they know sharks are real. They know that that's like Jaws.
Yeah, because they don't want to say because the second you start showing that video, because look, I still look at that picture and I go, I don't know. You know, you look at that picture and you just go, it looks like E.T. when you see that picture, and it's just I don't know. But the other side of that is, what's Spielberg know? You know what I mean? Like, what does Spielberg know that we don't know? But
I don't know.
You can go in a million different conspiracy theories if you wanted to.
Yeah, you keep bringing up Spielberg. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he knows anything. Unless, I mean, it's like there was a great interview. I was watching Encounters the other day, just because I like to put it on in the background while I'm moving into the house and doing busy work. And
the movie, not that Netflix series.
The Netflix series.
Oh, the Netflix series. Okay.
Yeah, I put that on again,
okay.
And I'm just watching it in the background, and they have the prototype for the French scientist in
Jacques Vallée, right?
They're talking, Jacques Vallée, and that again, and I sit there and I pause and I go, so why did Spielberg put him in Close Encounters? What did he know? You know, I think he's just trying.
Dude, Hynek was on set. Hynek was on set as well. So like, they had both those guys on set. But the reason I just say I'm kind of half joking when I say that because when you look at those pictures, I mean, it looks like E.T. At one point, you know, you say like, I wonder if anyone ever showed Spielberg a picture back in like 1980 and said, hey, if you ever do an alien movie, make it look like that. You know what I mean? Like, you never know. But nonetheless, yeah.
But he's trying to base his, like, Close Encounters. He was trying to base it within the science and the facts based of it, so to ground it. And I think that he could possibly be doing that with his next movie. We talked about Emily Blunt being in there, how that brings a level of kind of legitimacy and kind of like
class,
some class, exactly.
Showing just a little bit class, just a bit,
and especially, and I brought this up, she was coming off of the Oppenheimer win, and she's in those big scenes with the hearings and Oppenheimer, and it conjures to mind something like that. It's like, ooh, what if it's like UFO disclosure, and that's his message.
I hope
that's the timeliness of it.
I would much rather him do something in the vein of Close Encounters right now, as opposed to E.T. and War of the Worlds. Like, it's like, you did it. It's fun, but like, let's make people start talking about it. And Spielberg could do that with that movie.
I think so. He's always had that fascination. If he's anything like you and me, which I believe he is.
Yeah. Have you heard him? Did you hear him on Colbert?
Yeah, and I have not, and I want to.
You should.
But I know so much about Spielberg. He's my favorite director. That kid, when he was a kid, was always looking up to the sky.
Right.
I mean, you watch his movies. I mean, the guy his imagination is through the roof. Anybody that has an imagination like that, it's like you and me. We're looking to the sky. We're hoping there's more out there. And if he has the means to do it and pull in these great minds and look to the landscape that we're in right now and go, wait a minute, okay, everybody, what if I go the UFO disclosure route and I pull in, like, some based on reality or based on this person, based on a true story, and we start to, and he does a story about Mr. Smith goes to Washington to get disclosure for UAPs. I could see him doing that in a heartbeat.
Be great. Well, we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, when it comes to this story with Nasca, these we can't even call them mummies anymore, I don't think. These potential bodies. It's still, I think, hard for people to grasp overall of the fact that this could be real. Now, I ask you guys who are watching, what do you think this is overall? Do you think that the fact that you get people like Gary Nolan now and other people now backing these scientists who have been working very hard at it to make this very clear that, Gary Nolan is someone, when he starts talking, he's going to bring more legitimacy to it, and it's not necessarily fair, but it is, it's one of these things where he talks these people, and he's been giving credit to everybody who's been doing it. He just says, I'm looking at this data and what the work that these people are doing is just absolutely amazing. What do you guys think about everything that's going on with it? Put your comments in there. Tell me Do you think it's legit? Do you think it's work? Do you think that this is something that's going to turn out to A, be other species from this planet, B, be other species from somewhere else, C, they're going to go, oh no, we were wrong. We thought it was something else, and it turns out it actually was cake. How do you feel? What do you think it is? And do you think it's all just a big hoax a la Rusk? Put your comments in there. Tell me what you think. All right, we're going to move on over. Let's get to some Burchett stuff, shall we? All right, Tim Burchett, who on this show we have been fans of what he is trying to do overall with disclosure, putting a crew together. In the beginning of this thing, he was the first person to talk about the bipartisanship of it and talking about his buddy Moskowitz, his buddy Schumer, and then he would also talk about his friends on the same side of his aisle with Luna and Gates and all that. And he was like, wow, this guy really is pushing for the bipartisanship of it all, because this is what this topic is. He has tried to push forward certain things to get them to happen with hearings. He's been, again, front and center. He's put the feet to the coal for some of the big companies and all that. We have not been fans over the last 2-3 weeks of how he has kind of swayed a little bit away from the bipartisanship of it and made it a Republican versus Democrat thing, which is a disastrous way to go. Disastrous. So if that happens, if he continues to push the Democrat versus Republican thing in this topic, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to go well for him. I don't think, because I can tell you, I saw people when we were talking about this thing, Republicans and Democrats in the comment section saying, look, I'm a Republican. I agree with you. This is not the way to go about this particular topic. There's other things that we're fighting about. This ain't the one. And he talks about, and the reason, what we're talking about in particular is when Robert Garcia put forward this amendment, Tim Burchett right away said, he's a Democrat. He says, it's not going to happen. It's not going to push forward. Well, this is what he said in an interview recently about that, how he didn't think it was going to pass in the first place. So let me play this clip.
I made some comments about Chuck Schumer, about his amendment that didn't go on. And I just said, I said to the people involved, I was like, he's helping us. I said, well, we'll see. And then his amendment didn't go on. This is the most powerful guy in the world. This is the guy that, the reason we're spending $160 billion in Ukraine. The guy that's responsible for a lot of policy changes and maneuvers in this country, and he can't get an amendment on about UFOs. Come on. Come on. And then if people took that as partisan, I said, well, the Republicans in charge aren't doing any better. It's just that he put an amendment forward and it didn't get on. And then he went on the Senate floor and complained about it. And nobody was talking about it afterwards. That should have been the story of the decade right there.
What do you think happened there?
I just don't think it was ever intended to pass. I don't think it was ever intended to pass. And that's what I think.
Okay, so he kind of doubles down a little bit, I think. He says, people took that as partisan. Yeah, it is. It still is. Because now, again, I want to preface the fact that this guy's done so much for this movement, Burchett. He's done so much for it. But to say something like, this is the most powerful guy and he can't get an amendment passed, the president of the United States can't get shit passed because of the back and forth of people who want to block it. If there's somebody who wants to block it that has more power to block it, they're going to block it. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican, a Democrat. This guy can't get it passed. If he could get anything he wanted passed, he'd be getting everything that he wanted passed. You know what I mean? So he didn't have any intent to get this passed. Then why is he putting his reputation? This doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense.
No, it makes zero sense to me, and it's starting to bug me a bit, because it's the election cycle now, and I feel like that there's a little bit of bias on his end that he's got to just side with the Republican side of things and be against any kind of bipartisanship that comes his way. And I agree with you on that. It's like he says the most powerful man in the world.
Well, he's one. Right. He's one of. He's one of them. But he's not wrong here, though, Reilly. What he says is like, and no one covered it, and no one's talking about it. That's not Schumer's fault. But he's right there. He's 100% right.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, he's kind of saying, like, well, why can't he get it passed because of X, Y, Z? I'm just finding it a little bit disheartening.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I would look, and there might be answers that you and I just don't have, in that he might be able to. And I very much so would love to interview him. I would love to interview him, because to have the straight up conversation of saying, listen, how does that happen though? Because looking as an outside person who is not in the government, like, it seems to me that if there's enough people on the other side that don't want to get blocked, doesn't matter how powerful you are. That's why they have the majority. And that's why I think we're in the peril that we're in general with this country sometimes, is that if there's a bill that the Republicans want to pass and the Democrats don't want it to happen, ain't going to happen. And the same goes for if the Democrats want a bill, Republicans go, nope. I mean, look at all the stuff that happened with the Speaker of the House. Certain things that they want to do, and because one guy on the one team was siding with the other guy in the other team, they wanted to oust that guy, and they wanted to oust the other guy, and that was coming in because he didn't help him out. And it's a mess. And if it starts to happen over here, and this is again both sides of it, and it's like, it almost makes me happy that a lot of them aren't paying attention to the UFO thing, because it's like you know what I mean? Because nothing would get done at all. And he does say, to be fair to him as well, he just say, oh, the Republicans aren't doing that great of a job either with this thing. That's the one that, I mean, it's more bipartisan. So I just want him to go back to that whole thing where he's like, that person over there on that side is helping me out. They're helping me out. I just think my personal opinion with Burchett right now is he's just so beaten down by everybody. He just has felt the frustration that everybody who has been involved in this thing for the last 70, 80 years who've been trying to get information out there, that has been frustrated with. And it's like every door he knocks on, he's like, oh, it's open. It's slammed in his face, right? Because he knows that if he does the right thing, and look, there's glory in this. He could be the guy that leads the whole charge that eventually gets us to disclosure. And maybe the politicians are this way. A lot of people are this way. And I'm not saying it's factual, but maybe he's like, well, wait a minute. I have been pushing forward on this and putting my career at risk with everything that I'm doing. And then Garcia's coming in here, putting forward the amendment, and if it gets passed, he's the guy that they're going to hold up the arm and go, way to go, champ. F that. I put my career at stake here. Mm-hmm. I get it. And I mean, in the same way that I would get it if he felt that way. I don't think it's the right way to go, but I get it if that is indeed the case.
Sure. You said the one thing that really stands out to what you said. We don't know what is happening behind closed doors. We can only assume from statements made and from, you even said it as well. I mean, what is happening when there's a majority versus a minority in the House of Representatives, the Senate? I mean, that's what these senators and these representatives campaign on, and trying to get the majority so they can put their agenda through. And if one person says no, and then there's infighting, or there's special executive orders, even whatever, what have you, it is a circus right now. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, I think anybody can look at it. What's been going on in the House of Representatives it's a mess. It's a mess. It's ridiculous. The speaker, you brought up the Speaker of the House. That stuff is driving me crazy, because it seems nothing is getting done. And so when you take a bill, or you take something like this, disclosure, aliens, which is what they'll say. They won't say UAP and unidentified this and not alien or this. If we can't get anything through that matters in the United States and to all the people, whether it's election, guns, education, health, whatever, if you can't get that stuff going, you're not going to get a UAP thing going. That's just, I think that is just absolutely the fact of the situation, which I mention every time on this show, that because the stigma around it. You look at Chris Christie on the Republican debate stage being asked that question about disclosure, and him going like, whatever he said, just poo-pooing it aside.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot that you could, what you said, Kristian, I mean, Burchett could be just beaten down by this, be tired by this. All the doors slamming, the different disinformation campaigns that could be out there, all the squawking going on, the different people that are just standing outside. What's going on? Whatever it may be. It's a lot to get through, and I understand that. I totally understand that, and I don't even know what specifics are happening behind all those closed doors.
Yeah.
I think the way to do this is to continue the bipartisanship.
Yeah, and we
continue to say you're my ally, Democrat, Republican, whoever you may be. I don't care. You're my ally. This is for the greater good of the human race.
I know, but that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot.
It's asking way too much right now. When
I think you're right though with the election side of it, and I think even Burchett mentioned that as he was hinting that it's going to take a president with the balls, if you will, to really push it forward and just to say, go around everybody and go, we're going for disclosure. Here we go. He pretty much kind of alluded to that. But the other thing that he said when he talked about the Lou Elizondo, the threats and everything, and this is what Burchett said. Okay, from Skyfire News, Congressman Burchett speaks on the threats against Lou Elizondo. The congressman and Elizondo had dinner around the time that Elizondo made it known that he was being threatened. He didn't detail what the threats were or who made them, but Burchett expressed his anger and said that he's alarmed. He said, Lou is a dear friend of mine, and I take any threat against anybody seriously, especially against friends and somebody that has given so much to this country and to this issue, Burchett said. So I'm very much aware of it, and I'm very much alarmed. I am pursuing every avenue I can to get to the bottom of it. So that's a great comment. That's a great thing, and he has been very vocal about how I think Lou Elizondo has been, from the beginning, one of the people that he's spoken to very closely is Burchett, right? Yeah. And I think that every time you've heard Burchett, he's never changed his opinion on Lou Elizondo every time that they have spoken. So I think there's more there. Now, I do feel that Lou Elizondo might be one of the people that at the next hearing, I'm so confused with the next hearing, Reilly. Every time I hear about it, it's like, because if we do get one in August, like they say, Burchett and Luna are pushing that they really want this thing to be about USOs. Yet right. Burchett also says that there's going to be a lot of the Grusch witnesses. Are those USO witnesses also? Or are they going to be combined? I mean, then you have the whole side of it with Gillibrand, who says that it's going to be Arrow. I don't know what the hell's happening.
No one does.
Yeah, somebody does.
No, I don't know. Something's going on, but yeah, I think you need to just push for disclosure, and I think the classification between the two can confuse the general public.
Yeah,
and I think that it's just important to get whoever you can get, whistleblowers, Elizondo, just get some people of that have great credibility and have the credentials to match it. Yeah. I think you need to get them if you want just disclosure, to start opening up the floodgates. Because if you start classifying these things, people you're gonna lose people.
Yeah, just the genie's out of the bottle.
Bring in some. Yeah, but
the genie's out of the bottle a little bit more. But I think though when it comes to these threats, these particular threats, and if it's continuously, if it's still happening, and now that it's so open that so many people are talking about it, and there's so many people inside of the government that are trying to do something about it, you got to assume that those things get, like, if you're on the other side of it, the Men in Black side of it, if you will, they're going, yeah, but we can't really do what we were doing in the shadows as much. We can, but we just got to be a lot more careful.
Yeah.
Because there's so many eyes on you. You look at like what Burchett's saying,
Yeah. I mean, it's these threats, and I know we have that story that we'll most likely get to, because I think it has a lot to do with this. But if we're just talking Lou Elizondo right now, it's really kind of scary to think, okay, threats from who?
Right.
Government.
Right.
Secret organization, cabal of people that call themselves the Freemasons, Deep Throat, what have you, all the conspiracy theories, Men in Black, all that. But if it's tied to the government, that's kind of scary to consider.
Yeah, and we don't know. So we don't know. Let's stick with that then. We don't cover Stephen Greer that much on the show, and I don't know if it. And people always ask us how come, and I don't know what to make of Stephen Greer, to be completely honest with you. I don't know. And like as I said up top when we came to this Nasca stuff, I don't ever say, well, no, definitively no. There's a lot of time and say what you want. A lot of his claims are wild. A lot of the things, and if turns out to be true, a lot of people are going to go, he told you so. he told you so. And there's all these different things that he says. You're like, hey, some people think he's an opportunist. Some people think that he's just out there to try to make money. Other people say, like, no, this guy is legit and he knows what he's talking about. And he's, we have covered him recently where we said he has kind of like this fail-safe where it's like, yeah, listen, if anything happens to me, this vast amount of information is going to come out. And so beware those who make threats. But he did say this. This is two particular clips in general that we're going to start with it because it's relating to the threat side of it. And take a look what Greer says. All right, and props to Skyfire News once again for clipping this out. Here you go.
I've had 4 people on my team killed.
4 people in your team killed?
I have. And when Mr. Grusch was asked about this at the House Oversight hearing last year, he said yes. And because when Mr. Grusch was working with people that I had been briefing to give information so he could begin to drill down on this. But he was not a direct whistleblower witness. He's called a whistleblower, but he's not. He didn't directly deal with the technology or the programs. He was investigating them on behalf of the folks that I was given information to tell them where to go. Like I told them exactly where to go in the high desert of California to find this stuff. Or wherever. So, but someone asked. One of the members of the committee, I think it was Congressman Burchett, who I've been working with, asked, "Well, have people been killed?" And of course, a few months earlier, I think it was January of last year, there was a peripheral person on that team who was killed because he stuck his nose in the wrong place. So people are very naive, frankly, if they don't think this kind of corrupt power. Think of the worst thing you ever heard about the mafia or the mob on steroids, hypercharged on steroids.
But let's stay on that.
That's what you're dealing with. So they're thugs.
4 people that were killed on your team, they're public. How were they killed, and how recent was it?
Oh, this goes back in the 90s.
What were you talking about? And what were they talking about or digging that cost them their lives?
They were deep cover sources giving me information.
So they had jobs
before I had good security in place, and I didn't have what I have in place now, which I call.
Can you say what they did for a living or no?
Well, there were various. Well, one was a military naval intelligence guy, one was CIA, and one was an assistant of mine.
It was an assistant of yours.
I'm a good friend.
How did he get killed?
She.
How did she get killed?
It was basically a chemical weapon that was induced a very aggressive cancer very quickly. And, I have an FBI lady on my team who's a special agent. She said, we have 150 substances like that.
150 substances to inject cancer into somebody.
Or brush up against someone or do something that will kill them. Yeah.
All right. So scary stuff when you hear that clip.
Yeah.
And one of the things you look at, so we've talked about the Y files many times over, and Reilly still hasn't watched that video that I sent him 4 months ago. But so there's the Y files talked about when it came to the remote viewing, and one of the original remote viewers, they say that a lot of people are convinced that while he was in Vegas, I think, that he was brushed up against, injected with something, had a heart attack like that. So this type of thing that Stephen Greer is talking about is not something that he just kind of, you say, oh, he just kind of made that kind of science fiction, conspiracy born identity type of stuff up. He's not the only person that said those types of things. So is that particular thing possible? I believe so. I think it's possible. I don't know. What do you make about those claims, Reilly?
I mean, I think it's possible. Absolutely. I think that it's scary. It's very, very scary to really consider it and to go down that rabbit hole. But he brought up Grusch in this, and Grusch, who I believe to be completely credible, has mentioned threats.
Yeah.
And, so when I consider Grusch's statements and I pair them with this, it makes me scared. It puts a little bit of a chill down the spine. You know what I mean? And I believe it could be true. Now we are always going to, well, who is it? Who are making these threats? Who is killing people, as you allege? Boy, that's a Pandora's box. And I don't know. I do not know where to point the finger. I mean,
how could you?
Part of me goes to these Boeing hearings right now, and and rightly so. You have Republicans and Democrats, grilling this CEO, going, "How much did you make?" Oh, and you stand by your safety record because there's a bunch of people behind you right now holding up the signs of their dead loved ones, from your mishandling of things. So.
And how about the whistleblowers? And how about the whistleblowers of that? Just like two or three of them. Just kind of.
My next point, exactly. And these whistleblowers that are dying, so that's where I go. That's where I can look at the hearings happening, the whistleblowers with the mysterious deaths, and it was just a heart attack. Was it? That's where I can get my mind, and it goes halfway down the rabbit hole and go, well, there's a little bit of smoke there.
It's easy to go down that rabbit hole and say maybe, but that's
they have all the money in the world, and they have people that
if they have that kind of technology and they're hiding it, what else do they have? Who knows?
What else do they have? Who knows? What else can they buy with money?
Who knows?
I.e., professionals that we see movies about it all the time, professional hitmen that know what to do and how to do it and make it look like an accident.
Right.
Yada, yada, yada.
It's all possible. And I also think that the stuff that you mentioned, I liked when he was talking about Grusch, about what he said, and he's pretty definitive on it. And things that we already knew, but it is good to clarify it, that in the terminology of it, realistically, is that David Grusch isn't the definition of a whistleblower. He is someone who's come forward with the information. He was someone who was investigating it and was told all these things in this high government job where he's like, I can point you to the people who can tell you. And that's why we say the David Grusch whistleblowers, the 40 plus, are they going to come forward? Because these are the people that have worked in the programs, that have done these things. Like, where are those people, and will we get those people? Those are the ones that Burchett was talking about, and other people, and the information that he is coordinated with, like Luna and those other people. But this is something that is interesting when you listen. Speaking of Luna, she said she's been visited by Men in Black. But I do, as we mentioned earlier before, I think that as Greer was mentioning, that this is something that happened in the 90s. That was my earlier point to you, Reilly. There was not this big spotlight on this thing today, then, like there is today. Now, it's not as open in the public as we would like it to be, but there certainly weren't people talking about it in the way that we are right now. The way that you couldn't access social media. Like, you go into social media right now and start looking at information and videos and news and things. You can find stuff on this like that. Couldn't do that back in the 90s. So it's a lot more quiet, and that's even Stephen Greer says, I didn't have the security in place. And what he meant by that, I think, is this story that we covered a couple of weeks ago, is that he's like, okay, if anything else happens to me, my team, here's what comes out. Right. And now that has stopped. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's a good, I buy that. Yeah, social media has really changed our world as we know it, and you can press a button and release all that stuff and let it do its own talking.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that back in the 90s, like you said. So it's scary. I can't point fingers to, because I don't know. And nobody knows. And if this is another disinformation campaign to make people shut up because they want to just scare them into not talking, because they don't want to lose either reverse engineer stuff or technology or whatever it may be, that could be one example of it. Or are there,
they've been protected,
walking around?
The secrets have been protected. It's like this, it's just this club that doesn't want to let go of the secrets, and secrecy is power. But
secrecy is power. Yeah, absolutely.
Continuing on with Greer, here's something else that he said that was pretty interesting, and check it out.
Now look what happened to Tucker Carlson. I don't know if you know who Tucker Carlson. He was on Fox.
I was on the show a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to be on it, but see, he got gaslit. He had a whole bunch of disinformation people come to him and provided him with enormous amount of false information. And so one of the problems is, a little knowledge is a very dangerous thing on this issue. And it's very easy for someone with a limited amount of access and information to have people come in and steer them in the direction of the aliens are eating us for lunch and taking our babies, right? That whole rubbish. But that is really the stock and trade. So if you move in that direction, doors will open. If you actually start putting out the truth, every door will close.
All right, that's interesting. Because we've heard that before. We've heard that there's many people out there that were continuously getting misinformation, putting it out there, and like look at it in his point of view to where you could see where there's merit to it, right? If you are these people that are going, you know what? Do me a favor. Go and talk to Tucker Carlson. Guy's got a big audience, and there's a lot of people out there, and just feed him this. And then he does, and he goes out there, he says something, and he just can't believe the shit that he's saying. He can't, and he's hearing, he can't believe it, and he's putting this stuff out there, and you hear it. And then when they come down, like, this guy's talking about aliens eating people, and what is he talking about? And then the follow up to what Greer says there is, yeah, but if you start putting out the real information, that's when people go, Merit. There's merit to it.
Absolutely. That's if you have a big platform like Tucker Carlson does, and you put out the most outlandish shit, and people
thinking it's legit,
and then having somebody like Tucker say, "I believe it," or like, because he was saying what I've heard is keeps me up at night, right? And he starts to kind of build that legend, the idea of it being like, oh. The secret keeper, right? Oh, I've heard something that is keeping me awake. And then it starts to slowly trickle out there, and you get people who watch Tucker and say, well, I've heard this. When that real stuff comes out, that's the whole point of disinformation.
Right.
When the real stuff comes out, you have a huge faction of people going, no, not even listening to that because they're over here believing what they saw on Tucker Carlson, who believed what he heard, who is now putting it out there. I mean, that's the whole point. You put the disinformation out there, and you let social media and word of mouth do the rest.
Yeah.
And I buy that completely. I buy it completely because
totally, that makes sense.
And it sets us back because we can't talk about like what's in this. Like, okay, that aside, what's up there?
Right.
What flew by Graves and them? What did what are these people seeing that punches holes in the clouds that go fast? What are those videos that were released in 2017 along with that New York Times article? No. That stuff is aliens eating people. That's what we
focus on that. Focus on that, right? And the strategy of it, and Rogan talks about it all the time too when it comes to the disinformation. I think that sometimes because he's so skeptical of it, I think even some of the stuff that's legit, like he was thinking that I think at one point he talked about how he thought that Grusch could have been getting misinformation for some of these people, which is also possible.
Absolutely
possible. It just seems like there's some, but he also seems like he's talking to some very, very credible people too. But yeah, the misinformation is certainly out there. We've seen it, and there's stuff that leaks. And even this picture we're going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, who knows if somebody put that out there to go, yeah, have them talk about this, and then you look at what it really is, and it's nothing. But let's get to, there's two more stories, and this Roswell thing's pretty fascinating. Listen to this clip. All right, this is from our buddy tweeting over at Michelangelo. Roswell crash site materials. Frank Kimbler, who's a former professional geologist, oceanographer, and a mining engineer. He found over 20-plus metal fragments at the alleged Roswell UFO crash site. So listen to this particular clip. Here we go.
With all of the materials you've had tested, even the ones that we worked with, Atlas Lab and everything, what do you think is the most compelling or intriguing thing that has been, uncovered so far with all of the metals? Does anything really stand out to you as highly anomalous?
I think being a scientist, I cannot come out and say I have extraterrestrial material in my hand. I can't do that because you need to have, in order for something to come out right, you need to have 3 independent laboratories that are good laboratories confirm the exact same information across the board. I've never been able to have that done. We get onesies, maybe twosies, but not the third one. And it's usually something goes wrong or things disappear or whatever. And it gets to be kind of scary on that. So here's what I've got. I have material that is odd. It's anomalous. Does it have the magical properties that people, the Holy Grail, where you hold it in your hand and let it unfold? No, it doesn't have that. Do we have some things that are intriguing as far as metals that are sitting out in the desert? Yeah, we do. They are intriguing things. Some of them are different in that they're essentially unknown types they're unknown alloys, but once again, they can be made on Earth. They're just different combinations of elements, and it might have been errors in the work that was done on it previously, but some of the work was really good. So it's still a mystery. In that, I would like to say, yeah, these are extraterrestrial in origin, but mainstream science needs to look at this stuff, and they need to look at it very carefully and say, hey, yeah, you've got trash from out there, or you've got ET material out there, or you have pieces of stuff from airplanes that blew up in the sky or something. People need to look at it, not just a geologist that works at a local school in Roswell. You need to have some good scientific evaluations of this material, and that has not been done yet.
All right. So, Reilly, this guy's essentially saying what we're saying, is that in the same way where we're talking about the Nasca stuff. It's like, this needs to be studied by everybody. In the case of look at it. If this is potentially, if it's nothing, tell us it's nothing. Tell us it's crap. Tell us junk. It's from a plane. Let's see who we're actually getting to test it. And it's not like, oh yeah, this is Sean Kirkpatrick's brother. Oh, great. Okay, yeah, then we know. Right. Let me guess and tell you what he's going to tell us at the end of it. Find people who are actually going to study it, get a real scientific study on it, and say, wait a minute, what the hell is this? As he said, well, what do you read from all those comments from the beginning on there? What do you take?
Well, no, I'm with you. And I always said, I said it up top when we were talking about the Mexican aliens or whatever they are now. The science is going to set us free. I think that is where you go with this. And so if you're hiding these things but there's something there, get the proper researchers, get the credentials back to back it up, and let's start testing this stuff. Let's start getting the idea that we can back this with data or science. That's going to unlock everything. But there seems to be now even more questions arising from always Roswell. What is going on at Roswell? I know. That's the big mystery.
I just wish our world was really like the movies, though, to where it's like, okay, this guy has all this material. Send everyone to go check it out. Who? Gary Oldman pops out. Everyone! It's like, send everyone. Send everyone to get an answer. Whatever it may be, whatever the answer is, send everyone. And it's like, well, but this guy's working on this. Who cares what he's working on? Well, she's working on this. Who cares what she's working on? Change it. Let's get the damn things studied and figure out what the hell it is.
I wish it was like movies too. I wish I had a best friend who was an alien who, hung out with me when I was 10 years old.
Yeah. Considering some of the disinformation, you very well might have. From what
who was that?
I
Chad?
Well, they say they're all among us.
Well, right. Chad. I remember him eating a child in first grade.
Oh.
The idea that it's always it seems to, for me, always become a theme, and that is the stigma behind it. Even in the science community, I think there are scientists that are like, meh. And they will continue doing what they want to do. I think that stops people every time from just kind of pushing it aside without giving it the proper
due diligence
or research. Due diligence is a better way to say it. Absolutely. Yeah. To just look into it, because we are, and I think the tide is turning. I mean, it's slow baby steps. I said that last week. It's baby steps.
Well, if you Russell Crowe, 2027, right?
Yeah, I know. 2027, something big is going to happen, according to Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
well-known alien aficionado.
He is. Yeah. Well, yeah. So there's a lot here to this, and I ask you guys, so when you hear this, what do you think? Do you think this is one of the things? And it isn't even really necessarily. You can, if you want to say, what do you think the material is that this particular gentleman has seen? But do you think that it is something that everyone should be studying? Put your comments in there. And then lastly, the last thing I want to show is this picture that's been running around the internet lately. And let me take a look at it. Here it is. Okay, so here's this. So the UFO podcast put this particular picture out, and it says, what do we think? Here's the picture itself that came out, and then next to it is this military miniatures that it looks like it was kind of superimposed over. So you look at it. Yeah, and you look at this picture here. Let's see if you can. So that's the military miniatures portion of it. But then if you go and you look at right here, can I? Yeah. Now that was the ship itself, is what they said with people. I mean, this is kind of what we're talking about. I think. I don't think this is legit. I don't think this is real at all. I think the military miniatures is probably more realistic that they did something like that. But and this goes back to the idea of, like, there's a video that we saw a couple months ago that we played, and this guy was just in a field. He looks up and this thing jets by him, and then jets go flying after the thing, and then it's like, yeah, it was really good, but I don't know. That's one that when the corridor crew says not real, I go, yeah, I kind of believe him on that one. They say everything's not real, but like for that particular one, I was like, yep, that one's not real. And this to me seems kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, you put some military miniatures next to it, and they look. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, so
it's hard to. No, I don't believe it to be real.
But then again, you never know. You never know. Right?
You never know. I mean, where's the science?
Right.
Let's get a scientist in here to look at the. Now it's fake. Look at these miniatures.
Right. We started it. We started it with we don't know. We end it with we don't know. So thank you for joining us here today on UAP Tuesday on the Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff channel. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 30,000. Help us get to 50,000, and on and on and on, so we can get the word here spread. We are here every Tuesday, and then I'm actually going to put another news piece out later on today. But I put one news piece out a day, and then Tuesdays we are here for the long form show. I am joined by Mark Reilly once again. Mark, where can they find you?
You can find me on the internet at Reilly Around, REILLY Around. See you there.
And we'll see you guys again in just a little bit here on the channel for the news piece, and then we'll see you again here next Tuesday. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. For Mark Reilly, I'm me. We'll see you later.